I know there are people who don't take it, but I don't think I've ever met one.
I mean, it's a lot better than sex, for instance.
Travel? Every week is a couple of things that make me go, oh, I see, yeah. Travel?
I suppose it's like a very good wine.
I can't imagine what I did without it, really, you know. I know I ate a lot more, for a start.
Travel.
I think what I like about it is it lets you come towards it rather than it letting... rather than you know, instead of it going... It's really very good.
Contents page. Britain's new listocracy. To launch our new, smaller, glossy Fallout section, The Now, we publish the results of a major study commissioned by the Sunday Format to establish the most 500 people in Britain today.
Page 23, starting your own school. Clodagh Williams provides a guide to the do's and don'ts.
Page 82. Laura Foster took the art world by storm last year with her Turner Prize-winning photographs of feet. With her new video installations about to open at the Hayward Gallery, she's moved on to higher things, knees. Andy Gould goes to meet her.
Pages 35 to 43. Last month's floods in Indonesia, the worst in the country's history, left 10,000 people dead and 60,000 starving, homeless and struggling with disease. Will Benjamin has been to see the unfolding human tragedy for himself.
Page 15. My first trousers. This week, Will Self.
Page 41. A lime kiln of my own. Anita Roddick explains how acquiring a simple, crumbling Victorian structure together with the estuary and 350 acres of Devon countryside in which it's set has changed her weekends.
Page 62. With the millennium approaching, we look at tomatoes.
Page 75, relative comparisons. We ask 3 generations of the same family to compare spoons.
Page 50. How we divorced. Each week, 2 people who were once totally...
New culture. Now that Christmas has disappeared over the tinsel-strewn horizon of midwinter for another year, many of us will already be suffering from PFDS, or Principal Festival Deficiency Syndrome.
Latest psychomedical research from the world-famous Holistic Energy Hospital of the New Age in Santa Fe, New Mexico, suggests that festivals and holidays have an important restorative effect on the energy-sapping routine of everyday life. In fact, according to the latest research, our primal biorhythmical energy desperately requires more special events and ritual breaks for us to function properly as human beings. In fact, according to the latest research, to realize our full potential as human beings, we ought to be preparing for a festival of the same cultural import as Christmas, Hanukkah, Ramadan or the winter solstice every 4 weeks of the year.
In fact, according to the latest research, at the moment there are simply not enough festivals known to humankind. Fortunately, however, Unfata, the Tazbekistani Gungwat festival of the regeneration of the moon, takes place in 3 weeks, and according to the latest research, this is the minimum period that the human soul can withstand between festivals without sustaining permanent damage to the aura. Long-term effects can include insomnia, being a bit itchy now and then, excessive gullibility, and in extreme cases, death.
10 ideas.
Socialism.
Pudding.
Tonal shades of grey.
Christianity.
Road rage.
Electronic banking.
The past.
Musical notation.
Fire.
Suffolk. 10 words to use in conversation.
Guggenheim.
Byzantine.
Media.
Agenda.
Zugzwang.
Absinthe.
Ulcer.
Millennial.
Genome.
Spork.
Over the next few pages, we show you the essential items of food and decoration to join in the neglected festival of Unfata. Yak meat and dairy products available on mail order. Consult website. Fashion spread shot on location in Tazbekistan.
Some might quiver at the prospect of preparing another huge and complicated banquet.
Above left.
But others argue that it would be heartless and culturally judgmental to dismiss something which is of deep significance to the proud Tazbekistani ethnic minority, the Gungwats. Great Britain is home to a community of over 7 Tazbekistani Gungwats. 4 of them are convicted hitmen for Russian mafiosi, but the rest of the community needs our implicit support. And on top of that, it's fun. And it's not nearly as hard to ritually slaughter, butcher, baste and barbecue a Tazbeki camel,
clockwise from top left,
as it may first appear.
Camel butchers in your area. See www.chophumpy // Tazbeki cultural attaché, see yellow pages.
Going loco in parentis. As the millennium approaches, more and more parents are taking the plunge and deciding to open their own schools. Clodagh Williams provides a guide to the do's and don'ts. Pictures by Will Kettle.
A generation ago, if you opened your own school, the chances are that you would have been regarded as either an eccentric, a head teacher, or both. But last week, a survey of British parents confirmed that we're setting up schools like rabbits, at the rate of 3 a week to be more precise. A figure that's set to double in the next year if forecasters get their way. The reasons for this new phenomenon are complex, but, says Nigel Fox of the newly formed National Association of National Parent Educators, that's no reason why our children shouldn't be able to spell simple words like numeracy.
Basically, what we've discovered in Nampi is that there's a huge groundswell of popular support out there amongst people who think like we do, not just in inner city areas like Lancashire.
Part of that groundswell of opinion are Bill and Sarah Pilkington from Prince's Risborough. Bill is a freelance documentary filmmaker, while Sarah works in publishing as an interesting contrast. They have 2 children, Annie and Jack.
It was really our experience with Jack that started to make us think,
says Sarah, sitting in the kitchen of their 18th century former potato mill.
I don't blame the local school here. We've always been huge supporters of the state system.
Oh, very much so.
Agrees Bill, his hair receding.
Both our parents would have sent us to one if they'd known about them.
Yes.
Sarah takes up the agreeing.
But it's much more difficult when your children are your own. Jack's actually terribly bright.
Personally speaking.
Time management consultant. Tall, good-looking guy, seeks female to share relationship for 2 hours on Thursdays, half days at weekends. Must be punctilious, no time wasters.
Beautiful, slim, elegant, shapely, delightful businesswoman, 45. Seeks gentleman partner for long country walks, good conversation, and help lifting heavy furniture bought from IKEA.
Dental practitioner, 36. Seeks female companion for opera and food. Must have own teeth.
And I mean, it wasn't really their fault, but I'm afraid they just didn't have the resources to realise that. It was really very awkward for us.
Reports would come home, and I mean, they'd say things about him which made it very clear that they just didn't really know him.
Things came to a head for the Pilkingtons when Jack was 9, after an incident when he broke into the canteen and then filled the school piano with a tureen of tomato soup.
We had a series of meetings with his class teacher, and I mean, we couldn't believe her ears.
They were enormous.
Agrees Bill.
But more than that, it was obvious that she just hadn't seen what Jack is about at all.
She actually said at one point that she thought he was slow. All she wanted to talk about was that Jack couldn't read, couldn't write his own name, couldn't grasp that some numbers were bigger than others. I mean, it was all so negative. No wonder he was having problems with his confidence.
Like many parents before them, the Pilkingtons were faced with the question of what to do when it becomes obvious that a school is failing their child.
We tried everything. Child psychologists, taking Jack and Annie skiing in Canada in term time, conventional grown-up psychologists.
Tried and tested.
Clive and Yolanda Macadamia caused a stir in Milan last month by introducing their collection of fragrance-impregnated underwear. But could it be the next big thing? Our panel tried and tested a selection of off-the-peg scents you can get in your knickers. Perfume. The panel said, these knickers smell of perfume.
Svelte, intellectual girl, 32, seeks erudite beefcake, 28 to 38, for discussions about the metaphysical poets, the Russian formalists, and German cinema. Also, lots of sex, must like dogs.
Good-looking, blue-eyed, romantic male, 6 inches tall, seeks sincere woman. Must be over 5 feet 5.
Man, 38, WLTM woman, 25 to 35, for possible romance. GSOH essential, as are GFT, MMNB, KLS, CWCG DDE, KOA and PPPPP.
Eventually we discovered that in fact he had something called cognitive deficit syndrome, which has only just been discovered and tends to affect children who are extremely bright.
Their solution was radical. 4 years ago they converted one of their outbuildings to an in-building and opened their own school, installing Jack as the first and to date the only pupil.
The effects were immediate and dramatic,
remembers Sarah.
I remember them very well. Because Jack was the only pupil, he was able to go straight into the 6th form, even though he was only 13, which did wonders for his self-esteem. By the end of only his first term, he was president of the debating society, universally well-liked, and top in every subject, except maths.
And he's discovered for himself what his real passion and talent is. Computers.
Oh, God, yes. When it comes to anything to do with computers and the internet, he leaves Bill and I standing.
So much so that the school has just bought him a new top-of-the-range Apple Pi G7 Power ThinkMac book pad.
Last week, in General Studies, he downloaded and printed off 300 pages of the Encyclopaedia Britannica, and although he can't read them or count them, it's a tremendous achievement for him.
The whole process has been a wonderful thing to watch, a vindication of everything we'd always known, like a swan seeing its feet for the first time.
According to Nigel Fox,
above right,
the Pilkington story, remarkable though it is far from an isolated case.
In Nampi, we currently have over 200 members with either very similar or quite different stories to tell, and we think it's time the government pulled its fingers out of its ears and put them on the ground, where there's been a change of grassroots at sea level.
But he also adds a note of caution for those of us who might be thinking about joining the revolution.
It isn't for everyone. Our members are bound together by the fact that they're educated people people who are determined simply not to accept that their offspring are just plain slow, even in the face of mounting and sometimes undeniable evidence to the contrary. Above all else,
he warns,
you'll need an fund of funds.
Sell by data.
This week's panel: Ewan McGregor, actor; Tessa Jowell, MP; Prince Nassim Hamid, Prince. The product: scissors.
Boots, stainless steel, general purpose, $6.99.
McGregor.
I really like these. They remind me of my mother.
Jowell.
They're very good value, and they've gone for a classic look with the styling, but I couldn't actually make them work.
Prince Nassim Hamid.
These were like totally useless. The holes for your finger to go through was like impossible to find, and when you do work it out, if they're too small, a total insult.
Harrods classic English scissors, £75.
McGregor.
These were out of this world. Better than drugs.
Jowell.
They made me feel quite decadent and sexy when I had them in my hand. Maybe for a special occasion, or if someone gave them to me.
Prince Nassim.
Kicking scissors, man.
British Home Store's Long Life kitchen scissors, $14.99.
McGregor.
They reminded me of my primary school teacher.
Jowell.
Wonderful. Everything about them was just right. Because they're so well made, they can afford to be understated and don't have to try too hard, which I really like. The only minus point was that one of the blades had one of those rounded ends, which I always think is a bit disappointing. I bought 5 pairs.
Prince Nassim.
These was well shiny. It was like they was part of your hand. The holes where your fingers go was just there, like you just had to put your fingers in them. You had to. These scissors ain't gonna take no shit, you know what I'm saying? You mess with them, they're gonna bite you. Come in a little plastic sleeve so you know where they're at. Wicked.
Next week, Evelyn Glennie, Ron Atkinson and Sir David Attenborough give their verdict on shower gel. New mail order.
For Serge Ronsard, a dazzling career creating some of the world's most original statements in architecture, haute couture and interior design was not enough, as he told Heather Marchant.
I just felt basically that I could not communicate all I had to say within these classical disciplines. So, I look for a new media and I find my new mail order catalogue. What I offer in my catalogue is non-products for non-consumers. Consider the logo on the couverture. For the logo is significant. For a start, it's not a logo. It is an emblem. No, a symbol. A Chinese sage. He stands there like this, his legs so, as if on a mountain. But there is no mountain. So the question is, why climb the mountain when it's not there?
After 20 minutes, Serge is coaxed out of his reticence by the offer of an espresso and a fag.
So, life, you see, is a circle. And that is why my keyring is a circle. A key is for us a totem of our need for security. And where do we hang our keys? On a ring. And that is why the keyring in my catalogue is not a circle. It is an omega. It's a, I have my house, I have my car, I exist. But you look at my keyring and it say, maybe I have these things, but life is not perfect. Not perfect, but it's okay. At least I can go into my house.
The week ahead, in full, on television, in brief.
Choice, Monday 9:30, BBC 2, Harris in Paris.
It shouldn't really work, but somehow it does. Rolf Harris's breathless progress around the French capital includes some surprising insights into Europe's most romantic city. Look out for the sequence where the bearded one challenges Marco Pierre White to create a special recipe, sets it to music, and sings it to the volunteer workers in a home for rescued snails, all in the space of 24 hours.
Friday, 10 o'clock, BBC 2.
Elaine.
New series of the 30-something single-woman American imported sitcom, which divided opinion so interestingly last year. Of course, it's hard to believe that an apparently successful surgeon would become quite such a neurotic wreck over what kind of pantyhose to wear for an old school friend's divorce party. But on the evidence of this, first of the new batch, the show, like Elaine herself, sure has legs. Watch out for a brief cameo appearance from Stephen Fry, Sir Analyst's English personal trainer.
Wednesday, 9 o'clock, Channel 4, The Science of Sex.
After last week's riveting footage of an elephant's ejaculatory cycle, this week we move closer to home. Did you know that female baboons can ovulate whenever they feel like it? Watch and learn.
Thursday night.
Girl Alone, Mandy Tyler.
Single parenthood is not easy. I don't say this out of self-pity or martyrdom, but proudly. Because I'm coping with this new experience, rising to the challenge and feeling humble and empowered to have joined the ranks of my heroic sisters. I'm also proud that I've stopped obsessing about ex-husband. I don't need you anymore if you're reading this, you git. While taking the four-wheel drive to the garage for its service, having dropped youngest at nursery and left eldest with nanny and explained to new au pair how to use new Hoover, it's not her fault she's from somewhere in Eastern Europe where electricity is clearly still a luxury option, I was meditating on my newfound affinity with the oppressed and downtrodden, and it empowered me. Like them, I've now learnt to count every penny in and out, turn it round 3 times in my pocket before I spend it. No more skiing between now and Easter for me. But I shall cope. Depriving yourself of things is empowering somehow. And so I suppose I should thank ex-husband, really, for being such a heel, cad, swine, bastard, philandering...
Berkshire-based businessman, 42, successful, owns own independent toweling supply business, which has recently expanded into a small network of franchises, enabling me to buy 4-bedroomed luxury second home in Florida, complete with genuine antique fireplaces and fitted pine kitchen. Seeks warm, kind female companion who's not at all materialistic.
Attractive, brown-eyed, contented, successful, independent, cosmopolitan, successful, contented woman 36 seeks similar-aged male companion to fill aching void in my life.
Sleepless in Sevenoaks wants pretty woman to stay home alone for conversations about Hollywood films.
Slob. His decision to run off with Lolita has been good for me. He's out of my life, out of my mind, and is going to get the shock of his life when he sees what my divorce lawyer is going to take him for. It's all very empowering, in a curious kind of way. I was never much of a feminist before now, never really had the time, but now I am one and I feel, I don't know, empowered.
Here we have the clothing section. Nothing chemical, nothing synthetic, nothing artificial. My clothes are prototypes for the collective subconscious. They take us back to the tribe. They are immune to fashion. They are a statement, un cri de rébellion against the tyranny of trend. You wear my clothes, you wear freedom. La liberté, tout simplement. Look at my toothbrush. Look at the lines, the segment of curve. Even light bends in gravity. So why should a toothbrush be a straight line? A straight line, it is a lie. It denies reality. A straight toothbrush makes us deny la vérité. And only the truth can set us free. That is what my toothbrush do. It is an existential act. And also, the bristles are just right.
Sport.
Soccer. Shots to goal ratio, all matches, 17.5%.
Shots total Premier League, 24.
All shots this week, all matches, 692.
Shots season so far, excluding Worthington Cup, 8,320.
Shot season so far, including Worthington Cup, figure not available.
Shots total ever, all games, 1.75 million. Note, estimated figure based on algorithmic extrapolation for seasons when figures not collated.
Studs to boot ratio, 7-1.
Number of linesmen per match, 2.
Number of referees per match, 1.
Number of officials excluding reserve official, 3.
Number of officials including reserve official, 4.
Tackles, 85.
Number of new statistics this week, 3, including this one.
To sit is human. Animals cannot use chairs in the proper way. So you regard my dining table and chairs, my cutlery, you see not just bits of wood and metal. You see a provisional draft for the new rights of man. With my furniture, I reinterpret Rousseau for the millennium. But I cannot speak of it in words. It is too complicated for words. So I speak of it in ash and oak. For they are the most sacred trees. Contemplate, you will see. But use a mat or a hot dish will mark the surface.
Salt of the earth. At some time or other, most of us have wondered idly what it would be like to make your own salt. But as Max and Elaine Bryson,
clockwise above,
now know, the decision to turn that fantasy into reality can have unforeseen and surprising consequences. Report by Lucy Patton, pictures by Craig Enfield.
Until you first meet them, Max and Elaine Bryson don't look like unusual people. When you visit their house, a comfortable Victorian terrace in one of the now increasingly rare parts of Clapham that's still somewhere between Aspirational and Wandsworth, there's little outward sign of seasoning of any kind, let alone of the humble domestic staple which has changed their lives. Elaine,
above left,
a slight woman in her 40s, is a medley of modishly understated shades of grey, from the white-flecked charcoal of her hair to the lighter slate grey of her eyes and some of her teeth.
One of the interesting things is that Max and I both came to salt at roughly the same time in our lives, but from actually quite different directions.
They met each other quite by chance 15 years ago, when they both found themselves at an exhibition of wooden poles in Aldborough on the Suffolk coast.
It was extraordinary coincidence, an extraordinary exhibition, extraordinary extraordinarily potent time for both of us. We went for a walk on the beach on Sunday morning, the most terrific wind, but then both of us were quite nervous, I suppose.
We walked and walked and walked.
Elaine takes up the story.
So much to talk about, we hardly bothered where we were going. The day before, we hadn't known each other. By the end of the morning, we were soaked.
It was on a trip to Poland 2 years ago, where Elaine was making a documentary about sex, that the idea of making their own salt first occurred to them. Quite by accident, they made an astonishing discovery in the tiny hill village of Stasninski, which is Polish for tiny hill. They came across a family that was not only still making its own salt, but also, unbelievably, still making its own salt-making machines.
Yes, everything in my catalogue is expensive. But that is very important. Think about it. To pay more than something seems to be worth is not stupid. It is the path to wisdom. If I pay big money for small thing, I free myself from the worship of money. I say it means nothing to me. I reveal the absurdity and the injustice of consumer society by surrendering to its most whimsical temptations. I destroy the thing I love. I show that to love is to hate. To love is to destroy. I strip naked the contradictions of capitalism. Empto ergo sum. I buy, therefore I am. C'est chic, n'est-ce pas?
Serge Ronsard's mail-order catalogue, Le Rien, may be ordered on the net at www.lafuturesemoi.com.
In expanded form in this week's Sunday Format, The Gist.
10 places outside London.
Aldeburgh.
Scotland.
St Ives.
Hackney.
Burnham Market.
Wickham Market.
France.
Aldeburgh.
Edinburgh.
Suffolk.
Suddenly Max, until now reserved and in his early 50s, becomes animated.
Until then, I don't think I even realised that you could make your own salt. I mean, that it was possible.
That's exactly it.
Now Elaine is busy nodding with her head.
But that's what's so frightening, so important, that we can go through life without realising that, of course, that's how salt was made. Until quite recently, salt making was a natural part of all our lives. It would be second nature to all of us, every village, every home, but now it's almost gone, we've lost it.
Max agrees.
I agree.
9 o'clock, BBC Two.
Hooter on a scooter.
Howard Jacobson's journey through South America on a scooter continues, and after some initial wobbles in the early programmes, Jacobson is starting to look more comfortable in the saddle now. This week, he nears Lima, where he has a slow puncture apparently cured by a Peruvian witch doctor, and discovers startling similarities between some 1,000-year-old Inca mountain recipes and the meat pies of his Lancashire boyhood.
Friday, 10:30, Channel 4.
Rachel in a spin in the city.
So successful has this show become back in the US that when Vanessa Hartman, Rachel, decided she'd had enough recently, she was offered a Canadian ski resort to persuade her to stay. This is the one where David decides coffee is affecting his eyesight and one of Jennifer's heels comes loose when she's invited to her ex-boyfriend's gay wedding. Repeat.
Sunday, 9:30, Channel 4.
Sexual economics.
The commercial packaging of sex now contributes more to Britain's economy than the government spends on defence. This week's programme looks at the financial argument for legalising sex in public.
Thursday, 9:40.
Angus Wilson is on holiday.
The Sunday Format Crossword number 22,468, set by Vichy Soise.
In a Belgian haberdasher's, Gary Lineker soars Icarus-like into a futon, Anag 4.
Balzac used his as a soup spoon, we hear. 9.
A poodle faker alighting from the Wimbledon train might be mistaken for an Algerian with one of these. 7.
Old money. 2, 6.
Common proverb. 2, 5, 8, 1. 1, 7, 13, 28, 14, 7, 9, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1.
Board crossword setter replaces proper clues with random lottery numbers, perhaps. 5, 12, 18, 25, 26, 44.
It's one of those things that as soon as you start to think about it, you realise it's been under your nose all the time, like a moustache.
Of course, we already knew that Gdansk was the salt-making machinery capital of Europe up until the end of the 18th century, but we'd been told that the knowledge had died out and was lost forever. And here was this frail old man in his 80s with arthritic knees who still knew how to make them.
When we first went to meet Zbigniew, it was very moving for both of us.
Max again.
We felt very humble. Here was this man with nothing, not even any hair, and yet he trusted us, he smiled at us. His daughter offered us some simple white bread, and then he sprinkled a few shards of salt over it with his rheumatic hands, and we sat there and ate and watched television with them, a rerun of The Dukes of Hazzard with subtitles. It was a moment complete in itself. It was perfect.
Elaine and Max stayed with Zbigniew and his daughter for 3 months, hoping that eventually he would share with them the ancient skills that would otherwise, since his only son had left for Austria to become an alcoholic, be taken to the grave with him.
Gradually, I think we gained his respect, although the language barrier was a big problem to begin with.
Yes.
Agrees Max.
Neither of us could speak Polish at all well, and Zbigniew was almost completely deaf, so we had to communicate through his daughter, who fortunately understood rudimentary English and could shout.
At first, things didn't go at all smoothly, and we began to think that we'd never be able to explain what we wanted, although in the process we did learn how to slaughter a pig and construct a rudimentary satellite dish. But then gradually we began to get through to him, and it all started to happen.
The evidence of those months in Poland,
Top left.
now has pride of place above the cooker and everything else in the Brysons' elegantly understated kitchen in Clapham. As far as they know, the only working salt-making machine outside the Indian subcontinent. Since their return, they've decided to make a documentary about their experience, to be shown next Thursday on Channel 4, see Choice of the Pick of the Day, and have also just started planning a major divorce.
Business and jobs.
In this week's business format,
Body language can destroy your interview chances. How to control that left hook.
planning for success is not enough. Anticipate failure.
Oral sex. Is it the missing key to your promotion goals?
Angus Wilson is on holiday.
If you only do one thing this week.
Exhibitions.
If you only see one exhibition this week, go along to Tito Bonetti's at the Serpentine. His startling collection traces the history of croquet mallets through the ages.
10 ideas.
Its eclectic nature and sometimes shocking juxtapositions are always challenging, sometimes provocative.
As we were introduced to our own cows...
Contents page.
How we divorced. Each week, two people who were once totally married, but now lead happy and successful independent lives, describe the twists of fate that brought this about. This week, Tom and Miriam Stoppard.
Be warned, it's too strong for some tastes. The Argentinian pieces have had to be put behind a protective barrier after demonstrators drenched them with soup.
Catherine, my travelling companion of yesterday, was crying silently.
Friday 9:30, BBC 2.
Beverly in the Hills.
You might be sick of friends returning from the US and telling you they already know whether it was Matt or Andy that Beverly, Elaine Steinman, slept with after Lisa's lesbian christening. For the rest of us, we'll have to make do with the one where Beverly becomes convinced that she's been passed over for a promotion at the agency because she has uneven-sized breasts.
As if I have been driven from the Garden of Eden. I was very, very, very angry.
Page 30. How safe is your piano? As a major new survey suggests that up to 40% of upright pianos are clinically unsafe, Victoria Air looks at the growing body of evidence linking stringed instruments with ME.
Sunday 10 o'clock, BBC 2.
The joy of the art of the sex of food.
Fourth in the series. Where does the depiction of food in pornography stop and erotic art begin?
Although she'd been crying silently at breakfast time.
This week, David Aronovich and B. Campbell travel by train and then tandem via the restaurants of Brussels to Amsterdam to find out.
As well as at dinner the night before.
Photographs of feet. With her new video installations about to open at the Hayward Gallery, she's moved on to higher things, knees.
The school has just bought him a new top-of-the-range Apple Pie G7 Power ThinkMac book pad.
Also, lots of sex.
Next week, Evelyn Glennie, Ron Atkinson and Sir David Attenborough give their verdict on shower gel.
My first trousers.
Butcher, baste and barbecue a Tazbeki camel.
Clockwise from top left.
As it may first appear.
Chop Humpy /
Suffolk.
As the millennium approaches,
agrees Bill, his hair receding.
Kicking scissors, man.
I'm empowered.
I buy, therefore I am.
Prince Nassim Hamid. Prince.
Angus Wilson is on holiday.